Hello everybody, good evening. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog. I am Cammy Black. Those of you watching live, we've got a full complement tonight. I was messaging somebody about a future appearance on the podcast, and they said that I can do tonight. And I said, well, no, Edinburgh and Glasgow both won, and so they're all clamouring here. That's what happened. I thought we'd start though, Johnny, because Johnny McGinty's here after his holiday. I thought we'd start by asking for you to analyse how Fife versus Berwick. Do you want to start?
No. No, I've obviously had a week longer than the rest of you, so I've spoken to a few of the boys, and a lot of it seems to be the same as what you and Craig were saying last week. You know, gutted that they had some chances that they didn't take, and it certainly looked that way from the highlights. So the return leg should be good.
Good. I wasn't letting you escape that. You weren't getting away with that. We've also got with us, we've got Craig Manson. Good evening, Craig. I'm not going to make you relive it again.
No, it's fine. Thank you very much. Good evening, all. How are we doing?
We've got John Anderson. Good evening, John.
Hey, Cam.
And we've also got Ian here. Hello, Ian.
Boo! Oh, wait, sorry. Hello.
That's later, Ian. That's later. So, if you can, like I said, you can watch us live now. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch about 8:30 on a Wednesday evening. You can also download an audio version of the podcast afterwards on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Alexa, Google Podcasts. I say Google Podcasts. Any way you can get podcasts, that's where we are. You can also, if you want, sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast for £3 a month. You get ad-free audio versions of the podcast. You get access to some super secret live streams that go beyond the main one. And you also get an extra bonus weekly audio podcast as well that comes from that live stream. That's where Hands in the Ruck is now, for anyone that's been missing that. That's where we have our little rants. And we also have a bit of a swear, because we try and be U to PG on the main podcast, and then we kind of relax a little bit, relax our tongues a little bit when it comes to the to Hands in the Ruck later on. We'll start with a little bit of news. We are the podcast brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog, and you can go to scottishrugbyblog.co.uk. And today we published an open letter to Glasgow Warriors and Al Kellock about the upcoming fixture with Exeter Chiefs. Patreons will know we've talked about this on Hands in the Ruck the last couple of weeks, just about everything that's been going on recently. And we've talked about this issue for a long time. And at the weekend on BT Rugby Tonight, they interviewed two women of Indigenous American origin. There was Leandra Neffin and Jen Noel-Camper. That is excerpts of that are on the BT Sport website, so they're well worth checking out. There's really interesting interviews with them. So off the back of that got a lot of attention. Also, Wasps Rugby CEO has come out and said that he's having ongoing discussions with Premier Rugby, so we thought the timing was right to write to Glasgow and to Al Kellock. So you can go and have a look at that letter on the blog. I'm not going to read it out now. This afternoon/evening, we have heard from Glasgow Warriors, who reached out and contacted us. They have said that I've got to get this right, because they've said that what we can say is, when I find the message that's gone from my disappeared from my notes. This is really impressive.
Well, really fresh. The edited version, from what I remember.
No, here we go. So they're appreciative of the letter. And they're still at a discussion stage with EPRC, which is European Rugby, Wasps, and Exeter themselves.
Yes,
Ian's nodding. That's what we can say.
Yeah, well,
that's what you told me I could say, Ian.
I know, but I can never remember what the acronym for the rugby is. It EPRC or EPCR? EPCR. Yeah, I always get it wrong around. Yes, it's kind of the same with what Wasps said last week. When they'd said they were looking into it, they are looking for guidance from above. They don't want to be, Glasgow don't want to be the guys who come out saying, no, we are saying this, we can't do this. They're looking for a bit of support, basically.
But the fact they're having the discussions, though, is positive. That's what I took from it. The fact that those discussions are happening, and I don't think it was publicly known that those discussions were happening, is a really positive thing.
Yes, I received a surprise phone call about it I nearly dinged it because I just thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to answer it and go, "No, I have not been in a car crash. Take me off your list, please." But it was Cameron from Glasgow Warriors, and he said we can share that. Yes, Warriors are looking into this because obviously the groundswell of thought behind it has been building up over the last couple of years, especially and particularly with Leandra and Jen's appearance on Rugby Tonight on BT Sport. It's really helping to drive home the message that, it's this. I mean, this thing, like, as I said to Cameron, like, thing is, Exeter fans, we've been up a few times before, mingled with them, all fine people. I'm not assuming they're all mad racists. This is not the point. This is not, we're saying these are all a bunch of mad racists, stop wearing a headdress. What it is, it's saying these artifacts you're wearing, they are sacred items. You are mocking this culture, and it's just because they didn't know about it. We didn't know about it. We're not experts in Native American history. I don't think any of us are, anyway, or Indigenous people's cultures and stuff like that. But the voices are there now. It's not just us wokey white boys with our lefty liberal sensitivities. The people who this is affecting are saying it, and it's not just the American thing. The American teams are all changing their names. Exeter are the last ones to jump on the bandwagon, and no, it's not. You shouldn't jump on every bandwagon, but the fact of the matter is, the people who you say you are honouring are saying that you are not honouring them, you are offending them, you are mocking them, you're caricaturing them, you're stealing things from them which are sacred and stuff, and it shouldn't be allowed. Like I said, we're a stone's throw away from blacking up and doing the black and white minstrel show here. That's what it is.
The interesting thing with this is that there's always been voices from outside the club that have said this isn't right, but the main groundswell of support for change has come from within the club and has come from the crowd, the club's own fans, and we've been clear about that in the letter, saying it's a section of fans that continue to wear the headdress, and it's a section of fans that continue to chant the tomahawk chop, and that's what we're asking Glasgow to ban. It's technically it's a breach of stadium rules anyway, because you're not supposed to do anything offensive within Scotstoun Stadium. We're not asking for them to ban the branding, although Johnny Wasps have gone that stage further, and they didn't include any of Exeter's branding within their social media posts this week when they were playing them.
Brilliant. And it took me a couple of days to notice, and then I think it might have actually been someone sent it to you, where Wasps do their full-time poster with their badge and then the opponent's badge, and they'd left a blank space where Exeter's badge was. And I, because I'm cynical like that, I thought I'm going to go and check that this is actually what Wasps has done and nobody's photoshopped it. So I went on to Wasps' official Twitter feed, and they did do that. And also, when they do their live score updates, they'll normally just use a wasp emoji and the visiting team's emoji, and they used a big black cross for Exeter for every single live update. And so they use cherries for Gloucester, they use the little saint face for Northampton and stuff. For Exeter, it was a black cross for every single update, and then they just left a blank space on the poster, which I thought was amazing.
And Craig, I mean, it's easy, I think, for people to say, why are we talking about this on a Scottish Rugby podcast? Why does it matter? And I think there's a couple of things that we kind of, I suppose, is that one, it's that they're coming up to Glasgow, and do we want that in a Scottish ground? Do you want to see that in a Scottish ground? The other thing is it's showing support for people affected by this. And the other thing, I suppose, is that Scotland is it's a country who welcomes immigration, and do we, as a sport, does rugby want to say, I suppose, what message does it send to people who aren't white that we'll allow other cultures, other backgrounds to be mocked openly within the sports stadium? Because it's not just Indigenous American people that would be offensive to it. It also sends the wrong message to people of other Black, Asian, and other ethnic minority groups.
I think also, Scotland's it's becoming more and more a liberal country, and it's, for me, it's more the fact of we're in a modern culture nowadays. I need to be able to look my kids in the eye and say that that we've always stood up for what's right. And I just remember my days when I used to go to Northern Ireland when I worked over there, and they are, almost a generation away from getting away from all of the troubles that they had, and it's about making sure that you're on the right side of history, as we've always we've continually discussed. I think also Wasps have taken the step, and I think it's very much up to the rugby clubs within the UK, the professional rugby clubs, to take that step with them and stand behind them and say we're with you as well, because they're the ones that have actually taken a step and are taking a fair bit of flack about it. So I think it's a good step to take. I think Glasgow are a fairly open-minded club. Don't get me wrong, us in Scotland haven't got it right all the time. We're not the most, we're not the most woke country in the world, but we have got it wrong in times. But this time we've got the opportunity to be on the right side of it, and I think it's the right way to go.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the thing, John, is the speaking to Wasps. That surprised me a little when we heard that I suppose when you think about it, it makes sense. But that's the positive thing, that they're talking to the club that have already taken a stand about this.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows a bit of solidarity, doesn't it? But also, if we're being, again, back to the very first point we made about almost seeking support from above, the work that Wasps have already undertaken on this, they've obviously issued a statement kind of saying that we're going to be doing work on this, they're going to be having discussions. Those discussions, it's really important that Glasgow get wind of those, because if they are going to take any steps in this matter, then having all the evidence in front of them is really useful. And why reinvent the wheel if someone's already done it? Brilliant.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, Ian, it was something you kind of, when we were drafting the letter together, and you'd kind of raised about what Glasgow did with Nelson Mandela, and I think that's what we've said in the letter is, we'd like Glasgow, we're asking them to take a step further, because Glasgow has this history as a city of taking a stand on big issues. It gave Nelson Mandela the freedom of the city. I don't think I'd realised the whole story of this, that they'd given Nelson Mandela the freedom of the city in 1981. But then not only that, but the city council then renamed the street where the South African embassy was to be Mandela Place, which is a wonderful piece of trolling.
Yeah, I think I've not actually checked this up but I'm pretty sure it went to a sort of public vote. Yeah. Or the suggestions were open to the public, and they said we'll call it Nelson Mandela Place. Unfortunately, Simple Minds also wrote a song about it. But no, I mean, some of the stuff that you'd said in the letter, Cammy, like the 1915 rent strikes, and the thing about the East Kilbride aviation manufacturers refusing to build Chilean warplanes. Those things I didn't know, but obviously, sort of more recent history, there's poll tax as well. We don't take kindly to bullies, and that's exactly what this is. And I mean, one of the big things I'm just surprised at is that the Exeter players haven't been backward in coming forward with their opinions about certain things, and yet none of them seem to say anything about the branding. Where's Jack Knowles' opinion on this?
Well, if you think about it, Ian, think about the dodgy lids that Jack Noel and Henry Slade are sporting. They obviously are in the market for something to cover up that dodgy hairstyle. So, given Noel wears that stupid abomination of a head guard from Red Bull.
We have had that feedback before when we've talked about this issue. Why aren't we condemning Stuart Hogg? Why aren't we condemning Johnny Gray? And why aren't we condemning Sam Hidalgo-Clyne? And it's
we've condemned Sam Hidalgo-Clyne loads, just not for this.
Just not for that.
Just not about this.
But I don't think ultimately, I'm not excusing that. I would like to think that those discussions are happening internally with the players. Somehow we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I think it's about targeting the right people in the right way and having the discussion. Now, if somebody was to ask, I'm not in a position to ask Stuart Hogg or Johnny Gray or about or Sam Skinner what their opinion is about this issue. I've no doubt that now it's in the press, they might get asked if they're on press duty for Scotland over the next few weeks. That's probably going to come up. It's probably definitely going to come up prior to the Glasgow game.
Let me just check that media schedule next week.
But it's not. I don't think they're employees of the club, and they'll like we've all been in work and jobs, and there's things you like about things you don't. And yes, we'd like them to take a stand, but are we condemning them for playing for the club? No, because I wouldn't condemn Exeter Chiefs for Change for continuing to support the club, because that's what it is. This is one that I've no doubt Exeter is a wonderful rugby club underneath it all. I'm not sure about the owner, but I'm sure down in Devon they do an awful lot for the community. They certainly do a lot for developing out of town business parks.
Very much so.
But I'm sure there's lots that goes on that's good at Exeter, because and there must be, because otherwise the fans that are pushing for this change within Exeter wouldn't keep at it, because they wouldn't want to walk away. So there has to be something special about the club that keeps these people hanging on in the hope that it will change. And I would imagine the players are in a similar position.
Yeah, we were there. I went in 2019 to Sandy Park for the Glasgow Exeter game, and it was a really, really nice weekend. The fans were all really friendly. We went to Gareth Steenson's bar, and they're really welcoming. And it's like it's a nice place to go, and they love their team, and the majority of them were really, really nice to us. I wasn't such a fan of being in the Powwow bar or the Trading Post club shop, but the club and the fans themselves are really nice. They're really involved in the town and stuff. They just need to get this tiny little thing sorted.
Yeah. And I think it's coming. You could see this weekend after the BT Rugby Tonight thing that there was a change in some of the regular people you've seen comment on this on Twitter had started to had an opportunity afterwards to ask questions to Exeter Chiefs for Change of Leandra, and she was being very honest and open with that. And you could see there was a couple of people starting to say, okay, I understand it now. And the discussions were then going on to talk about alternative branding that Exeter could use. And those, when you suggested that to those people in the past, had been dismissed as, oh, no, we're not doing that. We don't need to do that. And the tide seems to be turning anyway, which is a good thing. We hope that Glasgow can play their part in that, which would be nice.
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's move on to something else. And shall we do Super 6? Because it's finished. This is Super 6 is finished. And I'm really sorry. I apologise now to Martin Clark, who's been after my Super 6 jingle all the way through this. And I've failed, Martin, and I'm really sorry for that.
We're all gutted.
Well, next time me and John are practicing, we'll do like a napalm death one. Right,
yeah, I'll give you my. I mean, my idea was just to shout "Pick of the Six" over the Blankety Blanks theme tune, but so if you can do that for me in a napalm death style, then
we'll blast beat version of Blankety Blank.
Yeah, I'm going to drop B. That's how deep this is going in the bass.
Can we do it over 200 BPM, Bean?
If you do it, though, you have to. If you're going to do the Blankety,
John.
If you're on bass, though, Ian, what you really need to do is you need to get the whole boom boom of the blankety blank bit. It goes blankety blank, a boom boom. That's you really need to get that on the bass. It's not. Yeah.
Blankety blank.
Pick of the Six, but yeah.
That all high.
I wanted to talk about the final. I mean, we can talk about the tournament in general, but let's talk about the final. I was predicting a comfortable win for the Ayrshire Bulls, not for the Ayrshire Bulls, for the Southern Knights, and Ayrshire Bulls won. I also that also made me think of all the other terrible predictions I've made on this podcast. Like, and then I remembered I'd said coronavirus. That's just going to be like the flu, isn't it?
I think I said, oh man, that's just SARS. That's just SARS.
Yeah, you just said it's just SARS, and I was like, that's just like the swine flu. Nobody's going to cancel rugby games over this.
20 months later.
So not only am I sorry,
shaved.
Not only am I sorry to the Southern Knights for making that prediction, I'm sorry to the entire of the world and United Kingdom.
Sorry, everyone.
Craig, that was. I mean, it was a good game. It was maybe wasn't to the kind of free flowing standard we've come to expect of the Super Six, but overall, it was a good contest between two top sides.
I think the big. I think for me, Ayr's defence was the biggest plus point for the game, because it just. absolutely put a stranglehold on the Southern Knights. They, every time, even when they went down to 14 men, the Southern Knights struggled to get any. In fact, they got to a point where the ball was either turned over or it was kicked upfield, from air because they dropped it. So I think the defence was absolutely outstanding. Especially, for example, I think it was Matt Davison that put that try-saving tackle in, and that was just like. There's
Ian
professional
Moody,
teams that can't do that.
Ian Moody is not an easy man to hold up when you're a fullback.
No, absolutely not. That was fabulous.
Was it Cavan that came in and helped as well? I mean, that was.
Yeah. But if you see him getting rolled, he was rolled just as he was about to put the ball down. He was rolled, and I just thought that was absolutely fabulous. Apart from showing up, I think it was there was a kick through. And it showed how inappropriately prepared the Dam Health Stadium is at the edges of the field. I didn't fancy getting a bit of rock rash and metal grating on somebody's head and one of the tries, but no, it was. I just thought Ayers. I think the thing that broke the Southern Knights was Ayers' defence.
Yeah. And that's something we've talked about a lot, John, on the podcast, is that, with Super Sixes, the attacks have been absolutely, top draw. Some of the rugby that's played is brilliant, but a lot of that was maybe down to some poor defending as well. So it's good that it's tightening up. I mean, it bodes well for next season, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think anyone would sit here and say that they want defences to be king in the Super Six, because the entertainment value, I think they said at the start of the commentary, didn't they, about how many tries had been scored in the tournament and stuff like that, and so it was like 170 or something. It's outstanding, and nobody wants to lose that, but we also need to view it as what it is the development pathway potentially for people to get game time, possibly move to pro contracts. It's meant to be that intermediary step between the amateur game and the pro clubs. And you'll not get away with that level of defence in the pro game, like at any point. In those first few weeks, it was quite disconcerting to see how bad the defences were. But I think it is really a positive thing that, as Craig says, a team has won it, and really defence is what won it for them. We've seen both teams kind of score lots of tries against others. So no, it's good. But if they want to just keep this like Super Rugby and just tackling optional and just go for it, then I think I still think I'm in for
that. Ian, I mean, it was always going to be Knights and Air Bulls, I suppose, in the final. I was quite encouraged to see. I mean, I think some of the doubts have been around the franchises and how people were going to take to it, and whether or not they were going to be able to build up their own kind of fan base. But you look at some of the footage, and there's kids in the crowd wearing Ayrshire bull horns, which is nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, I've been down to Millbury twice this season. Ladies' Day was absolutely jam packed, and not just because Matt Valance was there, obviously. I think the fact that because some of it's been played in summer, it got more people along. It also helped to get these initial tri-fests. But then, like you said, it's the fact that sort of two teams who are good defensively, obviously with Pat MacArthur being the Ayrshire coach, and also he stuck with his pack quite a lot. Especially his loose five. It was usually Everard Bloodworth, Sweeney, my boy, Fantini, and Blair McPherson. And that they had that cohesion to be able to defend. But even I was at the Watts game on Friday. The tournament was better than the last time I'd been. But certainly, I think with the Ayrshire Bulls games too that I went to, the tournament was better. I think a lot of it's just been, fans haven't been able to go to games, so that probably helped push the issue. But again, as well, I will put forward the fact that the weather conditions weren't honking would encourage people to go along. And I think as well, the brand of rugby, now that they've been able to see it on the telly, I think that probably helped as well.
Yeah.
John, we talked about that. Let's talk about the Dam Health Stadium's tri-goal area. Is that a design flaw that the Super 6 rugby has uncovered that the United Rugby Championship has hitherto failed to?
The end goal at Scotstoun is not exactly huge either. I don't know whether it's something that they've used purposely, but putting that big metal barrier around it doesn't seem like the best idea. Quite a lot of the Air players looked genuinely concerned for their teammate when he went skiting into that, which I'm not surprised.
I was at Braidholm the other week in GHA. They've lengthened their pitch, so their in-goal area is shorter now. Because there's like I think you're allowed a sort of 2 or 3 meter differential.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think it's maybe 5 lengthwise and 2 or 3 meters widthwise. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but that wee toe into touch could be a big thing. I'm not exactly sure who it benefits to have. Like Murrayfield's got a massive in-goal area.
Yeah. I've never really understood why
change it.
They've shortened it. Yeah,
it used to be massive because Stuart Hogg kept on getting caught out of it.
Yeah, there's like an absolute minimum, and I think if I remember rightly, with Scotstoun during the Commonwealth Games, they had to move the sevens to Ibrox because of the in-goal area. It was apparently too small.
All right, I thought it was more a capacity issue.
Probably a capacity issue as well, but I don't think Ibrox was. I mean, it was pretty busy, but I don't know if it was.
Oh no, it was ramped.
Was it ramped?
Yeah, I went the 2 sessions of the first day. Brett Gosford, I remember. Like my brother went on the Sunday. My brother was not a rugby fan, but he'd won tickets to go, and he loved it. He said, "Yeah, the place was absolutely buzzing." I'm pretty sure Gosford said that it broke all kinds of records for a weekend event. Over 200,000 tickets sold, and Ibrox is 56,000,
51,
52,
51.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you think about the team Scotland put out for that games, it's little wonder the fans turned up in their droves. You know,
I think that was when I'd noticed Mark Bennett was like he'd played a couple of times for Glasgow, but he'd been injured quite a lot. But it was at that tour I was like, my God, he's got some step on him.
Aye. Yep.
And then the year after that, he's ended up being World Rugby Breakthrough Player of the Year nominee.
Yep.
There was I did come back to rugby pitch sizes. There was I did once uncover, and I'm googling it now to see if I can find it. But I once uncovered a forum post on some random rugby forum post of somebody asking what the size of a rugby pitch could be. What's the minimum size of a rugby pitch could be? And the person who posted the question was Gregor Townsend. And so which makes me think that he had some sort of like tactical idea of either making it as wide as possible, obviously to get the wingers in, or make it as narrow as possible and see whether you could vary it. So thinking outside the box.
When Dick Advocaat joined Rangers, he asked for the pitch to be narrowed at Ibrox because he wanted his team to play more centrally.
That's right.
Well, Berwick, Shielfield at Berwick at Rangers, they used to have youth internationals because I think it was something like the biggest football pitch outside of like at the National Stadium at the time. So they wanted them to come and play on, just because it's got a greyhound track and speedway around the side.
Oh, skint knees.
Anyway, listen, back to Super 6. I've generally enjoyed it as a spectacle. I think it'd be interesting to see where it goes from here next season. I think all the gap between the teams was narrowing as the season came to an end, and I don't think everybody quite beat everybody, but it was almost there. I don't know whether we're allowed to do the joke anymore, Craig, because we've had the joke about we've had complaints about our accents all the way through this. We've also had a genuine complaint that our "ma," the Southern Knights joke is offensive. I think unless you're a Southern Belle, it can't be offensive.
That's true. It's
offensive to Southern Bells, and they're offensive anyway. So
they are, yeah, absolutely.
It's not offensive if you're mocking a racist.
When we talk about the Southern Knights, I want to have like a burning tea graphic in my background.
That's where the joke came from, right?
Yeah.
See, the context is everything. That is where the joke came from, and then it spiraled into Craig and us thinking about Southern Bells and Gone with the Wind.
It's a lowercase t for time to leave.
Naggers, eh? Naggers.
But I will say this. about the Super Six, and that is, frankly, I do give a damn.
Very good. Man, Cammy, that was fantastic. I actually, I had a conversation, and I was told that I'm too superficial. The Super Six is a superficial rugby tournament, and it's an abomination, and it should be completely replaced. And I think, I think in this. Yeah. Hello, Ian. I can see you. For those that aren't watching, Ian's doing an impression of a 9-year-old child in the back of geography.
We'll come to you next, Ian.
But the point I was trying to make about it was that in this modern day that we've got two professional teams. Hopefully, maybe eventually further down the line we might get a third. But we need a staging post, and we need to get players from the Premiership or from the lower ranks of rugby to actually experience a semi-professional setup. And I think it's not perfect. I don't think it's I think it needs at least 8 teams in it, because I think it needs more geographical. What's the word? It needs more teams in it that are from other areas, as of Glasgow, Aberdeen, Dundee, Inverness. There's that ability to engage more fans throughout Scotland. But the accessibility of it this season, the fact that it wasn't that it started when we had no rugby to talk about, apart from the Lions. The Lions were just finishing, etc. I think it's been absolutely fantastic, and I will not listen to the doomsayers. I think it's actually been a very good thing.
I think you could probably name. Think of I'll come to you first, Ian. Did you have something you wanted to say, because you were jumping around like you wanted to excuse you at the toilet? But
just like the person or the people who might have said that the Super Six is an abomination. I can probably guess some of the names there. But even from when it started, I think it's improved. I think it is fulfilling. It's the whole point of it. That's the thing. People seem to think it's a gateway for players to move up to Scottish professional teams. Fact is, we only have 2 of them, right? So it isn't that. It's a gateway for people to move to possibly to other professional teams, but also just to train at a higher level, which we've seen. So then you see guys like Stephen Longwell or Mate Arguero, who went from Warriors, then gone to France D2, or Stephen Longwell first was in MLR. Now I think he's away to the English Championship. Sometimes players take a while to learn. Especially front row guys like Longwell. And the fact of the matter is, he isn't going to get game time at Edinburgh or Glasgow, just simply because of the numbers there. So if he can go off to France D2, English Championship, play at a higher level, play professionally. If any player has that opportunity, then it's the whole point of it, and it means they can maybe, if they bloom later, they can then be a potential Scotland player. The detractors are instantly sort of given it sort of, but there's hardly any Scottish players, or there's not enough Scottish folk. Well, it's not simply about that, is it? It's about filling that gap. Because, when Scotland or Edinburgh have 15 players away international duty, you're then asking somebody who trains once a week and then plays on a Saturday to come in and play against a fully professional outfit. It's you're simply going to get found out.
And also, you can't just go straight to, we're going to do a semi-pro league, let's just fill it with Scottish players, because you've got nobody driving up the standards. So you have to bring in guys from outside who've experienced professional rugby or who are up and coming players to come in and play in. And I think with the player numbers that we've got, I would argue that if we're going to expand to 8 teams or even more, that you will always struggle to fill those squads with purely Scottish players. And I think actually it would be detrimental to do so, because you haven't got guys who've experienced rugby elsewhere coming in and saying, this isn't, this, we need to raise the standards. So bringing in ideas from other places, other teams, other cultures, it just becomes really insular. And that's essentially what happened in the Premiership. And that's why, they had to drop out the British and Irish Cup, because they were getting absolutely spanked by, third teams in York. Do you know what I mean? It's not
like we haven't done this before as well. Both of the pro clubs have had external influences come in and have a hugely positive impact on the standards at the club, driving up those standards. And
we're not allowed that either, though, John.
No, we're not. No, because they're not Scottish, believe it or not. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you could probably say that you could look at any. I think the mark of success has been that you could look at any of the teams and think of two, three players, if not more, in each team that you would think I'd be happy if they were in the Glasgow Remember squad. I know some of them kind of tangentially are, but you would think there's somebody for the future, or there's somebody I wouldn't mind going in and plugging a gap, and that's the mark of of it going in the right direction.
And also, if you look at, there's a very turned up nose from people from Englandshire who are saying that the rugby championship, it's not a scratch on the rugby championship, and it's this and that and the other. If you look at the rugby championship, first of all, it's failing at the moment. Second of all, the gap between the teams that have money and don't have money is massive, and so you've got these teams going out and either you get a couple of close games, and then the rest are getting absolutely spanked. And a spanking doesn't, apart from certain people who like a spanking, doesn't help anybody. And I think it doesn't make the game grow at all. Whereas if you look at it's 6 clubs in Scotland, but there are 6 clubs who have been fairly well matched. And there's been some fantastic rugby played, apart from Stirling County not cutting across properly.
Oh man, your boy Tom Roach, he
was fantastic. He's
brilliant. Yeah, his first game I went to, he got a yellow card against Bulls, which I thought was dodgy. It was a deliberate knock on, but I reckon it was a fair attempt at a tackle.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the one thing that I like about this, and it's made me kind of yearn for this in proper rugby as well, is just get rid of the TMOs. You don't need them. And I know there were two. I know there was probably, you could probably argue that you could say the first Ayrshire Bulls try shouldn't have been allowed if it was done on a TMO because he was in touch. You probably would have sat for 20 minutes while some random bloke in a box had judged whether or not Ian Moody had been held up or not.
Ben Skeen.
Chick. Can I just got another angle from the back about whether or not someone got under? Just been there.
I'm on a 12-hour time delay. So you're gonna have to wait till lunchtime.
But then you do get the problems like the Howe of Fife getting robbed at Berwick. If we'd had a TMO, then we would have, it would have been a far better.
Boys,
Berwick would have been allowed their try when Gareth Hill was adjudged to have knocked it forward when he clearly didn't.
You boys all know that you need to take the referee out of the equation, and it's it's coulda, woulda, shoulda's. So,
but I think the standard of refereeing, and I think this is something that for hands in the ruck later with the URC, I think. But the standard of refereeing in the Super Six, I think, has been really high, and it's been refreshing to see referees just. I know they haven't got the TMO, but they've just gone with their guts.
What I think has been most refreshing is as soon as somebody starts yapping, 10 yards back.
Off you go.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. The boy who got sent off as well on Sunday just straight away went, all right, no problem at all. See you later.
Aye.
Mind you, did tackle the boy with his head.
How many times have you seen in the professional game? You've got all the replays, you're watching the person, they know what they've done. And there's no mitigation whatsoever, and they're still like, no, if I disagree. You just drove a guy's head into the ground, but you disagree. That's cool.
In National Rugby, we'd have had 3 weeks of in-depth analysis about whether or not that was a red card or not, and it was clearly a red card.
Oh, it was a red card.
John Curran's furious about it. But I think I'm worried now that Everard, it was a horrendous tackle, right? And he's going to get a lengthy ban. But if he was a bigger name player, he wouldn't get such a lengthy ban. And it's a shame because he's been absolutely brilliant
Yeah. Has he got any evidence of his gift aid to like National Trust or the Dogs Trust or something like that he can put in and claim it's charitable work?
He should have done he should have done that every time he scored a try.
I heard he donated to us when we done the Dodmaster. That was enough. He donated a $5 to us.
You'll have to take the really posh chocolate biscuits. You'll have to take some really posh chocolate biscuits along to the here, and that's
what chocolate biscuits would you take?
Foxes.
None, because biscuit patter's gone.
Let's say this. Listen, we don't do biscuit. Well? We don't do biscuit patter in the main pod now. That's all for hands on. You want biscuit patter? You pay you £3 a month.
Hear what our favourite biscuit is?
I'm not giving that up for free.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I also got to fund our biscuit habit.
Yeah, let's talk about the URC because time's marching on, and I want to. We've been good at getting this in under the hour on the main podcast. And I like to keep it that way. Let's talk about Edinburgh first, Craig.
Please do,
because that was the better game out of the two, and I'll not have it any other way. There was a lot. It was a good game. It was entertaining. I think that I know you said it before. I know you were there. I know we've talked about this before, but and this isn't damning you with faint praise, but Edinburgh suddenly feel like a club because of the stadium. Before it felt like a collection of international players and fringe international players who got together on a Saturday, and a few people went along and watched them in the vacuum that was Murrayfield.
Yeah.
But just the way you can see it when you watch it live now, it feels like a club with proper fans.
Yeah, and I think where we're finding it, I think the players are now realising. The players, the players who got to meet a lot of the fans in the tunnel at Murrayfield, and they got their selfies and their autographs and things like that. But I don't think they ever felt that they were part of a club really, because they were. They're in the vacuum that is Murrayfield. We've looking at that's the third game in a row that we've increased spectators. It was over 6,000 at the match, and you could hear it. And it is
I was
really.
Gonna say it seems noisy on the TV.
Yeah, and it is really because you're also very close to the game. You can have a bit of banter with the players. You can have a bit of shout at folk. And once we go into Hands in the Ruck, I can tell you who I was shouting at. And I think it was just. I think, for example, WP Nell. No matter what anyone says, and he is getting a bit old around the edges, but he came on, and the first scrum penalty he got, the place just about erupted. And he just stood up and just smiled at his opposite number, smiled at Bismarck Duplessis, and everybody kind of went, aye, it's on. And it was just absolutely fantastic. And then Ian's gesturing because, further down the line, then there was some pushing and shoving after the second or the third, maybe, scrum penalty. It was. I think it's just one of those things. I think if we can get to that point where, we come out early, we catch people off guard with this new play that seems to be working with Mike Blair, and then all of a sudden defences show up, and we struggle a little bit after that point to get through the defences. If we can change a few of those little bits and pieces, then I think we'll be a more rounded team, and we'll get better. We'll not get those last minute scores at Benetton and things like that.
Yeah, I wanted to. Charlie Shield impressed me as well at the weekend. I think we've talked about him previously on the podcast as being, under Richard Cockrell, he kind of maybe came on. He'd be given 10 minutes at the end of a game to try and win it or change a game, and he'd overplay it a little bit. You could see he get frustrated.
Not endlessly box kick like everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing. It's hard to know whether or not he came on the last 10 minutes and he just kind of try some stuff. And it's hard to know whether or not you're comparing him to Henry Purgos, who'd been on and been clearly told to endlessly box kick to nothing.
Yeah.
As to whether or not that was a mark that he was a better player or he was but actually, I thought he controlled the game really well. And
he's got a great pass on them as well. Great pass from the bottom of the ruck. There's just a couple of things I would say need to be tidied up. with Charlie Shield, I think he's getting to relax a little bit and realise actually I've got an opportunity now, and I don't have to be the headless chicken. What
was your take on James Lang at 10? Which is, we've heard for a long time that he can play 10, and he had to come on. And I know in the Scotland shot, everyone's kind of gone, yeah. It's been a bit. It's like, yeah, but he's not amazing. He's never done anything like spectacular. He's solid.
Yeah. And I think apart from missing a kick right in front of the posts, he had a kick to take us further in the lead, and he hit the upright. But I think I prefer him at 12 or 13. I think he's going to be he's a better centre than he is a 10. I think the problem we have is, Mike Blair said it on TV. Actually, he said that his decision to go for a 6-2 split on the bench was the wrong one. But he was expecting to be dominant. The forwards to be dominant, and actually Edinburgh's forwards were the dominant team. In the long run, because the South Africans definitely tired.
Yeah, I don't think I never knew Mark Bennett could kick.
Oh
yeah, thundery about.
I know.
Plus 50 meters, easy.
Yeah,
I did well. I think just a couple of our line out was dire, and we need to solve that very, very quickly. Anytime Grant Gilchrist was jumping, he was getting it, but when it was going to somebody else, there was problems. And we had some really good chances. We kicked the ball into their 5 metre line, just off their try line, and we could have just taken that and mauled it. And unfortunately, then the line out was turned over. So, and that happened several times. So that was disappointing, because I think the score actually could have been bigger.
Yeah.
Did we Immelman offside? That annoyed me. When I think it was about an hour into the game, he had a break down the right. Bennett maybe nudged it on, but Immelman had got himself offside. It's like, no, you hold that back a bit. And it's the same actually when I watched Glasgow. Like, I think some of the Glasgow players are getting. Sorry, am I jumping ahead?
You are, because I'm gonna. Before we get on to Glasgow, Ian.
Yes,
John, Ian, and Johnny, I want you to say one nice thing each about Edinburgh. John.
I love that you are still giving.
You need to put your hands up so you're not crossing your fingers. By the way,
I really love that you are still giving an old man like Nell a nice retirement fund. It's really good news.
You'll show your front row a clean pair of heels. That's for sure.
Darcy Graham looks to be back on.
Yeah.
Happy about that. Very much so.
Yep, that was mine. Darcy Graham's defence in particular, in the last 10 minutes especially, was fantastic. That the try-saving tackle where he forced the boy into a double move, and then getting up to stop that crossfield kick, both in the last 10 minutes, I thought
that double move call was tight, man.
It was an interesting call.
I'd have given it, because it's like, but he's propelled himself forward. Well, not really. He's kind of.
He did. He propelled himself with his arm, and then it was. Then he went again. There was no. I'll tell you what was very obvious. There was. I've forgotten his name, but both that winger and the other winger that with the head guard on.
Adrancy.
Yeah, they were both very switched on, constantly hanging on the touchline. Pushing the stand off to kick the ball out to them, and get the ball out. They were like, for example, there was one. I've forgotten the chap's name, but the guy who missed that try or got that try turned. Said it wasn't a try. He was hanging on, talking to the touch judge as if so that the team, Edinburgh, were thinking, oh, he's part of the ball boys or something like that, and then all of a sudden the ball would get kicked over and he would catch it, and he looked very, very
it was smart play as well, because you're almost saying to the touch judge, I'm onside, sir, look where I am. Look, there's the line. I'm right here. I'm onside. So you're kind of you're removing any doubt from their mind, so that because they always check those cross kicks, don't they? If you score from it, they always check it, and you're like, well, I was talking to him. He was right there.
So one quick thing I would say about Edinburgh is, seeing as Lang said he'd come up here to play 12, they need to sort out their 10 situation. Is it going to be Savala, Chamberlain? Like, hasn't he really come on? Even now that Super 6 is finished, Jason Baggett, is he going to come back in? Oh no, there's this kind of rule that Super 6 can't go down a step. But I think
you can't go down a step. You can go down to the Premiership. You can't go below Premiership. So you can't go to. They can go and play for a Premiership team, but they can't go to National 1. So you couldn't go and play. You can't play for your kind of parent club, so to speak. So you can't go and play for Melrose.
See, I just thought it wasn't that you can go play with your Prem team either. So it's like, for example,
but none of them have got Prem teams because they're all relegated to the National 1.
I was just about to think that Van der Vault, but he's not in the Scotland. Again, I'm jumping the gun.
He's injured.
So
he took a big injury the weekend.
Yeah, I got a news notification that it was like, Edinburgh have big win against the Bulls, but it's marred by injury to Scotland star. And I was like, I don't remember anybody getting injured. I went and checked, it was Van der Vaart. I was like, heavy lifting going on there, boys. Let's be.
What I will say, just a little bit of defence on the old Jacko. He played out his skin again, and he's really shown himself this season. To be, when he's played, he's been fantastic. He's back to his old self again. But now, unfortunately, he's had a fairly hefty shoulder injury, I think. So, it's not that I'm saying I'm quite glad he's not going off to Scotland because, we need our tens. We need our tens.
Because after all, you have none.
Yeah.
How much are we before we send Duncan Weir across the M8 again?
Oh, yeah. He's been such a smart signing until he plays Guff on the weekend.
I did not say that. I have been absolutely damning in my criticism from Weir since the moment we signed him. I tagged Glasgow Warriors in it when they announced him and was like, all right, blooming stupid signing this, bloody retirement home, etc., etc., etc. I'll have none of your stuff, Craig.
Right. We've got 5 minutes to talk about Glasgow.
I don't think it'll take that long.
Rubbish game. We won. Move on.
Rufus McLean's
I'm not letting you move on that quickly. Come on.
Rufus McLean is dynamite. He is box office.
Yeah, this is strength. This is strength through tackles is quite remarkable.
Yeah. He was a wee boy last season as well. He's got big really quick.
He's really, really piled on the muscle, and he's kept his speed as well. If not, he's faster than he was. He's so rapid, and this spatial awareness just to see that gap and just gone.
Yeah,
brilliant. He's with the Scotland squad the way it's been announced. I could see him getting some pretty decent game time over the autumn.
Sione Tuipulotu is another one that I think has to be bang on for the Tonga game. Yeah, because that try where they were switching it back and forward, that was really simple. What I like about it is it's just really simple rugby, but it works.
Yeah.
See, that was a really nice example of Warriors' excellent support play, but not overdoing it. Sometimes I think there's been a lot of times people have made a break, but then whoever it is, they're too keen to get on the shoulder, so they end up overrunning it. Yeah. Just a wee bit of composure, just hold back a metre a wee second. Just let the guy who's got the ball, will look what's in front of him, then make a decision. But if you're right on, because there's been a few forward passes which have broken up plays, but when the likes of if George Horn's charging away, then you've got Sione, just on one shoulder, and then out wide, whether it's McLean or Cancellieri or Forbes, who we'll get onto later, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's just sometimes that wee bit of over exuberance because this is now a very young back three Glasgow have had. Whereas my complaint of the last couple of years have been we've got old dudes, great as DTH, Lee Jones, Nico, and all that were. They don't have that initial 1 or 2 metre burst of pace that they used to have when they were, in their early 20s. But it's encouraging signs as well. We're not as I mean, fair enough. We've not, apart from Ulster, who we did far better against than we did last year, we look a lot more solid in defence. And I think one of the big things about that is the fact that Richie Gray has been fit. Because a lot of the time he was out for a long time with concussion. Understandably, good things. We don't want to rush him back. That's the whole thing about Glasgow, and even Scotland being soft, especially Glasgow being the soft pack. Lewis Bean is now a full-time guy in, and he's not Leone Nakarawa, he's not brilliant or anything, but he's a big, lumpy guy.
Yeah,
and that's what we needed. We needed weight. So him and Gray coming in, they've Gray. I think Richie Gray's work rate is just phenomenal. It seems to be a family trait.
He's tough as a coffin nail, Lewis Bean, as well. He's a serious unit.
Can I say a downside about Glasgow
on, then, John?
Because because I'm obviously the balanced one here.
Sorry, I find that really funny. I apologise.
Speaking of composure, so Tuipulotu, very composed. George Horn has started this season. He's had some very good games, but I don't know what's like where he's get sand or what, but he is an agitated little man, and he was being very, very angry at the weekend. He did get his march back, and the refereeing was interesting at the weekend, as often is with that gentleman in charge. But Horn should know better. Age 26.
Yeah, I will just say that when Ryan Wilson won Man of the Match and it was presented by Nick Grigg, it did just look like a dad and his son out for a day out together at the rugby.
And Nick Grigg's his dad.
Right, make Craig say something nice about us now.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Look, Craig's done his fair share, and you're outnumber him 3-1.
May I say? I'll give you a great point. It was really good to see Glasgow. Their penalty count was far higher than Zebre. It's fantastic. They're the winners.
But that's not a bad thing. To win a game where you incur penalties, that's not something that either pro team's been great at.
It's something to be expected.
It's not something to be expected. It's not something I want.
When Ryan Wilson and Fraser Brown are in your team.
Fraser Brown is an absolute penalty animal just now, isn't he?
Right. Should we move on to the Scotland national team selections then?
Because I have an opinion about that. Do you know what we're going to do? We're going to do that for our patrons only. Because that's the end of the main podcast this week. We say thank you very much to everybody for listening, who's all our non-Patreon listeners. We're going to talk about the additional the additions to the Scotland squad and the omissions, even though some people have dropped out. We'll be back next week on the main podcast. We've got URC to review. We'll have Tonga to preview. It's the Autumn Nation series kind of starts ramping up. So we'll be back next Wednesday. For the moment, though, it is goodbye for me and goodbye from John, Ian, Craig, and Johnny.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.